A month after indiscriminate rocket attacks and a terrorist assault by Hamas militants on Israeli settlements, the Israeli army has cut the Gaza Strip in half, encircled the Gaza city, and is standing at its gates. Let's look at the Israeli army's progress, the resistance of Hamas militants, and the overall strategic situation on the map.
Consider leaving a like if you enjoyed the video to aid the algorithm.
After amassing thousands of pieces of military equipment in a closed military zone near the Gaza border, Israeli ground forces entered the Gaza Strip on the 27th of October, 20 days after the first Hamas attacks on Israel. Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi said that IDF ground forces, backed by heavy artillery fire, entered the Gaza Strip to eliminate Hamas, secure the border, and rescue hostages. IDF forces attacked from the northwest along the Al-Rashid Street. In this footage we can see Israeli Merkava tanks attacking the Gaza Strip from the beaches. The second axis of attack was Beit Hanun, where the Al-Qassam brigades, the militant wing of Hamas, attacked IDF forces with anti-tank missiles. The same thing happened about 15 kilometers to the south, east of Bureji, where the Israelis opened a third axis of attack. The aim was to cut the Gaza Strip in half and isolate Gaza City. Hamas official Ali Bakara said Palestinian fighters used anti-tank missiles to repel the attack. Palestinian media and the Axis of Resistance also reported that Palestinian fighters destroyed 2 Merkava tanks. The IDF carried out further clearing operations over the next 2 days. On the 30th of October, Israeli equipment was spotted moving from Yuhor ad-Dik to the Salah al-Din road in Gaza, after which the Israelis withdrew from the road. Clashes also took place northwest of Beit Lahia. On the 1st of November, Israeli armored units continued to advance in the northwest of the Gaza Strip, south along the coast to Salah Khalaf Street. They then attempted to move eastwards, inland, towards Al-Nasser and Al-Toum streets. Israel was already at the gates of Gaza City. Hamas attacked the IDF northeast of the city, near Beit Hanun. The Al-Qassam brigades claimed that its fighters had destroyed at least 4 Israeli Merkava tanks using Yasin 105 anti-tank weapons. The IDF also expanded its presence south of Gaza City towards the west. An Israeli armored unit was deployed west of Al-Mugraq. It was then only a matter of hours before Gaza City was cut off from the rest of the strip. And indeed, on the 2nd of November, an IDF presence was reported on the coastal road west of the Tika hospital. Iranian and Palestinian Axis of Resistance sources reported that Israeli forces were continuing their assault on Beit Hanun. By this time, the Israelis has merged the Beit Hanun axis to the northwest axis along the beach. The aim remained to encircle Beit Hanun. Meanwhile, Palestinian militias in the Gaza Strip continued to launch indirect fire attacks on Israeli territory adjacent to the southern Gaza Strip, in an attempt to tie up the IDF force there. On the 3rd of November, IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari confirmed that the Israelis were encircling Gaza from the air, land, and sea. The IDF reported that its forces had recently seized a Hamas military stronghold used by Nukba, the Naval Special Forces unit of Hamas militant wing, and Hamas operational intelligence headquarters in Jabalia. In a related development, a photo released by the IDF a few hours later showed Hamas defense plans for the northwestern part of Jabalia. The Institute for the Study of War notes that, quote, "The captured Hamas plans suggest that Hamas has not heavily committed to defending parts of the northern outskirts of Gaza City, which may indicate that Hamas units in parts of that area are screening for a main defensive effort in central Gaza City." The map appears to show an area of Hamas responsibility between Al-Toum and Fallujah roads, west of Jabalia, unquote. Meanwhile, the Al-Qassam brigades have been using anti-tank munitions and their intricate network of tunnels under the Gaza Strip to ambush IDF forces. There were also the first reports of clashes in the Gaza City neighborhoods of Zaytun and Shujaja. The following day, Israeli forces advanced mainly along the northwestern sector of the Gaza coast. The city was also encircled from the south, and the IDF reached the Tal al-Hawa neighborhood. On the 5th of November, the IDF confirmed that it had divided the Gaza Strip into two parts. The Israelis continued their assault on Tal al-Hawa, where the Al-Qassam brigades claimed to have halted the Israeli advance. The National Resistance Brigades, the military wing of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, attacked Israeli forces and fired anti-tank missiles at Israeli vehicles southeast of the Zaytun district and south of Gaza City. Commercially available satellite imagery from the 6th of November shows a flattened area between Sultan and Al-Toum roads, indicating that Israeli tanks or bulldozers were operating in the Sultan neighborhood, south of Beit Lahia. Palestinian militias claim to have engaged IDF forces operating near the Al-Shati refugee camp on the 6th of November. According to the Palestinians, Israeli airstrikes targeted the camp on the same day. In the information war, the IDF sought to respond to the Palestinian allegations, providing evidence that Hamas was using civilian facilities, such as Hamad Hospital, for military operations. Videos show Hamas fighters firing small arms fire at the IDF from the hospital. The following day, Israeli military equipment was seen west of Tal al-Hawa on Al-Rashid Street. In the north, Israeli forces entered the northern outskirts of Al-Shati refugee camp. Clearing operations also continued in Beit Hanun. On the 7th of November, exactly 1 month after the first Hamas attacks, Israeli forces were close to encircling the city, but this does not mean the end of fighting is near. On the contrary. In a ground campaign that lasted more than a week, the IDF made rapid advances in 3 sectors. Gaza has been cut in half, but the IDF remains committed to clearing operations outside the city. As Institute for the Study of War notes, quote, "The US military doctrine defines clearing operation as an operation that requires the commander to remove all enemy forces and eliminate organized resistance within an assigned area. Clearing operations frequently take weeks and sometimes months to complete. Enemy counterattacks will often persist throughout a clearing operation until the clearing force has successfully eliminated organized resistance in its sector." Unquote. IDF troops are currently concentrating their efforts on capturing command and control centers and driving Hamas members out of their hideouts on the outskirts of the crowded city, some of which are located near or under the enclave's overburdened hospitals. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said in a statement that, quote, "There are many days of fighting ahead. This war is different from previous ones. It will take time." He added that those responsible for the October 7th atrocities, quote, "will not continue to exist. We will bring Hamas to a state from which it will not be able to recover," he added. The IDF must also remain focused on 2 other directions. The first is the West Bank, where there are minor clashes between Palestinian militias and Israelis. More important, however, is the northern border with Lebanon. There, Israel has established a closed evacuation zone. Lebanese Hezbollah and the Al-Qassam brigades are carrying out cross-border attacks on Israeli territory there. The prospect of a full-blown attack by Hezbollah cannot be ruled out either. Both fronts serve to draw Israeli resources and capabilities away from Gaza. Since the start of the war, the Americans and British have conducted extensive reconnaissance operations in the region, as shown by images from Orion Intel. The Americans have also flown over the Gaza Strip itself using the MQ-9 Reaper unmanned aerial vehicle. The IDF said that 30 soldiers have been killed and several others wounded since the ground offensive began almost a fortnight ago. The Hamas-controlled Gaza Sanitation Authority said on Monday that the attacks had killed more than 10,000 people, including many women and children. There are still thousands of civilians in Gaza City. Israel released footage showing an evacuation corridor moving south. International pressure on Israel remains strong. Arab media reports that 16 out of Gaza's 35 hospitals are out of fuel, or 46% of them. They are supposed to house 50,000 pregnant women. Palestinians claim that Israel is attacking civilian infrastructure. Israel responds that Hamas is using it for military purposes and that it is trying to limit civilian casualties. The US as well as G7 foreign ministers are calling for a, quote, humanitarian pause in the war between Israel and Hamas to allow vital supplies to be delivered to desperate civilians in Gaza. In an interview with ABC News on Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seemed to give in to these pressures, saying that Israel could pause its campaign for, quote, an hour here, an hour there, to allow aid to flow through the strip. What will happen to Gaza if the IDF operation is successful? Netanyahu said that Israel would have, quote, overall responsibility for security in Gaza for an indefinite period of time, after the war against Hamas ends. However, he did not give details on what Israeli security oversight in Gaza would consist of and whether it would include a long-term military presence.